Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is older than the trees, mountains blowing like a breeze. Oh, Lord, yeah. Memories gather around her, miner's lady, stranger to water, dark and dusty on the sky. There's a teardrop in my eye. Oh, Lord, yeah.
If you don't subscribe to Fantom Facts Society, then don't talk to me or my son ever again.
Yeah.
What you say?
Never met as a wise man.
That's right.
I couldn't cut as a poor man's feeling. Tired of living like a blind man.
What you say?
Shake aside without a sense of feeling. This is how you remind me. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. This time I'm mistaken for it, and you were hard, but it's breaking. And I've been wrong. I've been down to the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream out, we haven't fun yet, yet, yet. This is how you remind me.
What you say?
It's not like you didn't know that I said I love you and I swear I still do. And it must have been so bad, 'cause living with me must have damn near killed you. And this is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. This time I'm mistaken for it, and you were hard, but it's breaking. And I've been wrong. I've been down to the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream out, we haven't fun yet.
Well, I had just got out from the county prison, doing 90 days for non-support. Tried to find me an executive position, but no matter how smooth I talk, they wouldn't listen to the fact that I was a genius. The man said we got all that we can use. Now I got them steadily depressing, low down mind messing, working at the car wash blues.
Well, I shouldn't be sitting in a half-conditioned office in a swivel chair, talking some trash to the secretary, saying, yeah, partner, come on over here. Instead of stuff, help rubbing these fenders with a rag and walking home in socky old shoes. Well, we're damn steadily depressing, low down mind messing, working at the car wash blues.
You know, a man of my ability, he should be smoking on a big cigar.
But till I get myself straight, I guess I'll just have to wait in my rubber suit of rubbing these tars.
Well, all I can do is to shake my head. You might believe it is true.
Oh, working at the end on Niagara Falls is a undiscovered Howard cruise. So baby,
Don't expect to see me with no double martini and in my highbrow society news. Cause I got them steadily depressing, low down fine messing, working at the car wash booth.
Broadcasting live from the Free Speech Studios. Deep within the city of Fountain. With over 4 years of satisfying the curious mind and looking damn sexy while doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, Fantom Facts Society.
It's so nice to be back with you. Just feels right on a Saturday night. Welcome to Fantom Facts Society, everyone. I am your host, Corey Hussing, with a very special guest, Brian Hayes, joining us. You know, it's funny. I mean, we let it play out a little bit more. But it is funny because it's like as you travel throughout the country, and I think everyone experiences this, is you just find fascinating people who have just a really unique perspective on life as they've seen it. You know, not as, you know, I grew up Midwest people. And to be honest, I know nothing. And so when you talk to, when you get a chance to talk to people who've been outside of your realm, you jump on it. And sometimes they look at you crazy and tell you no. And then there's, sometimes there's people like Brian Hayes who says yes. And we're grateful for that. So thank you, Brian, for coming on the show. Can you hear me all right, Brian?
Yeah. You are way too kind there, Corey. Appreciate you.
No. I just think everyone has a great, unique story. And really, it comes down to perspective, right? Like, how you set out to life and how you view life, and is how you can, is how you share it with others, based off of your attitude. And
Sure.
You had such a positive attitude, and I'm very grateful that I, suckered you into a podcast. So, but thank you, Brian. First of all, I know you were in the military. And I'd like to start there. We've interviewed a couple of veterans, and we're very grateful for that. And I'm always curious, because I did not serve. I'm always curious of the history of why you chose to serve. What type of person, it motivates them to serve. And so what's your story? Like, why did you choose to serve in the military?
So mine started out, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So coming out of high school, I joined the Navy, and that kicked things off. And
why the Navy?
Well, so I actually went to the Marine recruiter first, and but it's like they never pursued me. It's like, you want us, we don't necessarily want you.
And you had to be swayed, swooned.
That's right. Yeah. And where on the Navy recruiter basically was told about me, from someone else, and got to talking to me, and he gave me his pitch, and I went that direction.
Now you were 18, 19?
I was 18, right out of high school.
So like during high school, were you involved in sports? Was that, were you into any of that, or what was your interest during high school?
Shop classes mostly, but I wrestled from a.
I'm an Iowan, man. That's big. That's a big deal to me. All right, wrestler, scrappy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. But you decide now, did any of your family, had they served in the military, or were you the first one?
No, great question. And I actually I only know as far back as my great grandfather serving in World War One. My mother's great grandfather, and and uh, and and so well actually no, it's just my mother's grandfather served in World War One. Her father served
Really?
during World War Two. My dad's dad served in World War Two. My dad served in Nam, and and basically I ended up serving as well, and now I even have a daughter that's in the Army.
I saw the. I assume that was her in the picture that
Yes.
that you sent. It had to be. So now you're what, like 5 generations
That
into it now?
she is 5 generations
It's
that,
5
that we know
generations.
of. It's very difficult to research some of the records because there was a big fire in where the records were being held in St. Louis, and a lot of the records were damaged, destroyed totally.
Really? That's it's fascinating that that's how we lose history. Is like, oh,
Right.
there was a fire.
Yes.
It's such something so simple. When I talk to a lot of veterans, it seems to be like a family affair, which I really admire, because we had Lieutenant Colonel Larry Brock on, and his family, 4 generations. Yours is 5, 3 and 2. What do you think it is about the mentality of being in the military and wanting to, um, or I mean, did you want your children, or one of your children to join the military? Was that like you pushing them, or do you think it's something else?
It's a great question. So the the one daughter of mine that I would have voted most likely not to join, she's the one that did. So you,
Well done.
you never know. I mean, but I discovered that as well throughout my career. Is it seems like many of the same families continue to serve, which interestingly enough ends up being a very small percentage of Americans actually.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, the since it switched to voluntary force,
Right.
I mean, it's just sort of interesting who stayed behind and decided that. I mean, what a great legacy to leave defending your country. And that's why when we talk about wars, it's a very serious thing, because the people that have dedicated their lives to protect us shouldn't just be thrown into any situation.
Right.
This is a
Agree.
very special group of people who have decided that, have lived, their families have lived through these wars. They've survived and they come back, and they, produce a great lineage of warriors that protect the country. And it shouldn't be abused. It's an easy tool to abuse because it's so rare. What other country has such a willing voluntary fighting force? It's I can't think of any.
That's
So
it.
it's
That's
our number.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, there lot of countries out there. It's conscription. There's some sort of mandatory service where ours is voluntary. And it has been all voluntary since basically post Nam. Eh, you know, and
Do you think it should go back to mandatory?
what? No. I would never push for something like that. And here's why, Corey. Um, I want people in there that, to my left and my right, that want to be there. We already had to filter out people that joined, and we're not people that you wouldn't necessarily want to your left and right, but they ended up being more few than, they were more few and far between, because it was a group of people that volunteered initially.
Well, are you talking? Well, I mean, like World War II, it was mass draft,
Yeah. Yeah.
and same thing with
World War,
Vietnam. I mean,
World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, it was all draft.
Yeah. I mean, and we did pretty good under that too. But it is such, I love the fact, because it is uniquely American, I feel like, to have such a large force that's and to go through, and I don't want to get distracted, which I already did, but let's go back to you here. So you're 18, you're into, you're into the Navy. Now, what's the process like for you? Is there an oh shit moment, or are you just all in? This is who you are now.
So I was raised with a real strong work ethic, so I was always a go-getter. I always, I was always taught that if anything worth doing is worth doing well, putting your heart in it. And so that was always my aim, and it has served me well over the years, and that's kind of what I passed on to my kids. And but I wasn't necessarily looking at a military career, during my first hitch.
What did you think you would be doing? Like, in your mind at 18, what did you think? I'm in the Navy. I'm going to be peeling potatoes. What did you think you were going to do?
Yeah, great question. So my recruiter actually happened to be a submariner. So, he talked me into it, and he said, this is a very, very small group of people. I said, I like being a part of something small, special, all that, he was getting to that part of me that wanted to set myself apart from others. And so,
do you think it was wrong of him to do that?
No, he was actually a submariner as well. He saw something in me. He thought that I'd be, it's a small group. So, I mean, he can't necessarily recruit everybody into the submarine force, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it helps to be a little shorter too, right? I would assume.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't.
I had to get one in. All right. No, beat me up later, please. You'd win. You'd win. It'd be unfair. No. So, all right. So is that where you ended up then?
So what was wild is my first submarine that I went out to after I finished basic training in Great Lakes, Illinois, Great Mistakes, as we like to call it. Yes. And then after that, I went to Groton, Connecticut for submarine school, and then went to my first submarine. I go out there, and there's this big thing with scaffolding all around it, high and dry in a dry dock. It's going through refuel and refit.
And we're talking how long of a period?
Oh, refuel and refits, can last a year and a half, 2 years. Now I didn't know that. I didn't know how long we'd be there, but that was the world that I was in. Well, while I was there, I ran into a group of guys from Special Boat Unit 6. Well, so that was my first experience actually meeting Navy SEALs. I knew nothing about them. There wasn't a whole lot of information about SEALs. They're very,
what year is this? What year are we talking about?
This was in 89. Okay. The end of 88 is when I arrived. In December of 88 is when I arrived to my submarine in Mare Island, California, near Vallejo. They've closed that shipyard down, but that's where I was at.
Okay, and when you talk about running into them, what does that mean? Like, I mean, are you sitting there talking with them at a lunch table, or?
Well, I found out about this Special Boat Unit 6, and that they happened to be right there. Well, Special Boat Unit 6, they were part of what was called the Brown Water Navy. Now, these guys, when you do some digging, you find out that their heroic actions during Vietnam, going up the rivers and stuff like that, were pretty amazing. And so that, like I said, I just started learning as much as I could about them, and I decided that I wanted to become a Navy SEAL. I said, "There's my people," right? And so I started figuring out what it took to what their physical fitness test was about. That I had to pass that. I had to pass the diving medical physical. There was a psychological exam as well, ironically. And I completed that entire packet. I was working with SEALs right there at Special Boat Unit 6 to do this. And then I submitted a request up through my command to go to BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition / SEALs is what that stands for. And in Coronado, California. And it went.
How old are you? How old are you at this point?
At this point, when I'm putting this in, I'm 19 years old. I'm young and indestructible. I'd love to have the days back, right? And
don't talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, for fun, I got into a push-up competition with a bunch of other guys. Basically, you couldn't drop. You could rest in the up position, but and then you get to the point where you're only doing like one at a time, but you did as many as you could, and I did until the other person dropped, and then I did another 10 after that person, just to make a point.
Well, you have to have that mentality if you're going to be underwater messing with demolitions, I would assume, right? I mean, you don't want the guy that's just tapping out after 5.
Right.
I'm great cannon fodder. That's my role in the future World War III. So now you get accepted and you head out to California.
Well, that's the whole thing. I put up my pack. I sent the package up. I put in the request, and the submarine force was like, "You're already in a special program," denied. And so
you're going to be special.
Yeah. So I was pretty bummed out. I ain't going to lie. And
well, I mean, when you say bummed out, like, were you thinking of? I mean, were you just done putting in the effort, or?
Well, that was never my nature. But I continue to give everything that I had, and we ended up by this point we were getting ready to relocate out to Hawaii. So we were we ended up taking the boat out, doing sea trials and all that kind of stuff, which when I came out there's big holes in this submarine. You got to imagine, there's scaffolding around it, big holes in it and all that. And it went from being like that to
you're a boy from the Midwest, you're not I'm sure it's one of your first times experiencing the ocean to that length.
Yeah.
You're
not wrong. This is a guy that the only other state I'd been to was Missouri.
Well seasoned.
Yes. So I went from Missouri, and then basic training, I got to be in the Chicago area. I was like, okay, well, there's my third state.
Check them off. Yeah.
Kept going from there, right?
Well, I always found it amazing because I got to know a lot of people from Iowa and South Dakota, and the amount of people from those areas that served in the Navy, it just always surprised me because but I guess, it's a great way to train them from scratch, the right way, or the Navy way, I guess, I don't know the right way, but
yeah. Well, and I guess there's another way of looking at it too, agreed. I found a lot of guys that were serving, and the other way to look at it is they were from the heartland. Okay, so a lot more, that American pride running through their veins, all that kind of stuff, that sense of selflessness, that willingness to serve, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's and yeah, there's a sincere dedication to preserve that lifestyle, and so when the call is made, you know, I mean, during the Civil War, Iowa gave more civilians per capita than any other state.
Wow,
Like,
wow.
you know, and it's just might have helped that there was a lot of Irish that moved there, so they
Right.
were willing to. But nonetheless, you know, it's always the heartland that pays the price in these big wars.
Yeah, true, true.
So now you're 89, 90. You're in Hawaii. What's going on there?
Yeah, so then next thing you know, I'm in paradise, and single guy in paradise, and I go home. I go home on well, I mean, it's the tourist capital of the world, so I mean,
And when in Rome, I
no,
understand.
I mean, the thing is I'm here to make sure that the tourists were taken care of.
Yes, I thought it was to uphold the Constitution, Brian.
Well, I mean,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
here to serve.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was, and but it was neat because you got people from all over the world coming there, um, uh, and yeah, it was a great experience. The weather's awesome, and then making, doing all kinds of submarine missions, doing Westpacks as we call it, northern runs, all that kind of stuff. And a Westpack would be like, going out, and we'd hit Japan and Guam and Australia and Philippines and Hong Kong and so on and so forth, that kind of stuff.
Well, and how long a time period are we talking for each of these missions before you surfaced again? I mean, was
Oh,
there? Say what?
yeah. So the longest period of time that I spent without seeing sunlight was 68 days, and that was during Desert Storm.
And where were you stationed then?
I was still stationed out of Hawaii and all that, but we were on missions, and we were literally on a Westpac when that was happening.
And Desert Storm, and I'm born in '87, Brian. So I'm a little, forgive me for asking the stupid questions.
That's not stupid.
But Desert Storm is what, 90. I remember, I think it was 91 when it was it 91 or 90 when it took off.
Yeah, it kicked off. It was early part of 91, I think. Before that in 90 is when Desert Shield, when they started ramping up.
Okay.
But no, it took our guys like a whole month to topple, basically to kick Iraq out of Kuwait.
Yes, yeah. It was like, it was 2 weeks, wasn't it? It was
Very short period.
yes, very short.
Yeah, it was like it was like a couple of weeks and all that. But then when we went back in later, it literally took us an entire month to topple Iraq.
Well, I remember them saying they were like 24 hours away from killing Saddam Hussein. And Senior chose not to.
Well, and that's the thing is that was not the mission. The mission was to liberate Kuwait, which we did, outstandingly. That was the point. It wasn't to turn around and topple that regime. Well, there was some stuff that some shady stuff that they were doing, and when we started have to all of a sudden the reality of terrorism hit us hard, and we had to consider do we allow countries to continue to to basically go that direction and all that. Now that said, I got all kinds of feelings about about how that
Well, and it's a Vietnam syndrome here, where it's like you took a vow and you served your time and served that vow faithfully to do what your government asked of you. And at that point, it's all out of your hands. You are to do the job you're told to do. You know what I mean?
right.
Like it has nothing to do with what the powers that be are figuring out or deciding. My great uncle Curtis LeMay was Air Force general during World War II for both the Pacific and
I was
Europe.
going to say, I know the name.
Yeah. And he, in his documentary, he wrote in the very beginning, he said, what was done, will be discussed for centuries on the morality of it. And that's not my decision to make. That's for other people to talk about. I'm just going to tell you what was done and how efficiently it was done.
Right.
And essentially that's the job of the soldier, is to be efficient and to cause as least amount of casualties while gaining the most amount in return. And I feel like when my generation looks back on some of these wars, there's a lot of questions as to to legitimacy. And but that's never to be held to whoever served during that time. I think that's just a horrible thing. There's a great YouTube channel called Veterans Oral History Project.
Mm-hmm.
And he went around all of Wyoming and found every Vietnam vet he could. And had just ask them 7 basic questions. And it was so like enlightening, because these guys had been silenced for 40 years, and it took YouTube to hear these heroes' stories and the stuff they had to go through, and experience, and they were, people spit at them when they got home because they didn't agree with the war.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. That's
absolutely.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'd heard from so many that they would never allow another generation of troops to ever be treated like they were ever again.
And rightfully so. But in my opinion, and Bush did, in the sense where, he covered up all the dead that were returning back. It was a media blackout, to which ABC, NBC, CBS all agreed to. And I feel like it dishonored really those that had given the ultimate sacrifice in that war on terror, just to give this facade of, we're doing good. And I mean, as far as military goals, we were, but to just pretend the other side isn't happening, I don't think is good either. And nowadays you can't get away with it. The Ukraine-Russian war is showing that, the numbers just are going to come in one way or the other. But we got sidetracked, Brian. I apologize.
No, you're good.
So now, when do you leave the military here, or how long have you served up to this point?
So I served 6 years active Navy, but I wasn't necessarily looking at a military career. I fell in love and staying in the Navy, it was not a part of the plan. And so I got out.
So you meet the love of your life.
Yep.
Which is a ginger. So thank you for, taking care of my species. And, any kids ginger? Are you kids ginger?
Oh, wait, when you find a unicorn, you find a unicorn, man. You gotta lock that.
Don't call me a unicorn.
Well, apparently redheads with green eyes is the rarest combination on the planet. So, and my wife has red hair and green eyes. So.
You know what? I will say this. I have heard you say this several times on different occasions, and I love the fact that you got to say it on the show, because I'm very proud of that. Listen, guys, I mean, like, we get it, Brian. We get it. All right. We get it.
Oh, I know I'm married up. Don't get
How long have you guys been married?
We are in our 33rd year of marriage.
Congratulations,
Thanks,
man. That is absolutely amazing. If I had an applause button, I'd hit it. Yes. Low budget. What now? So you've been married 30 years. How long are you married before 9/11 happens? Because 9/11 is a key aspect in your life, right?
Yeah, it was. We'd been married, not quite a decade when 9/11 took place, and pissed me off enough to want to go back in the service.
What was her reaction to that?
So I mean, she got it. She understood it. She, you know, I started back on the part-time side in the Army National Guard, and I just felt like I needed to do more. And I talked with her about it, and she supported me with going back full-time active Army.
So, and what year is this? Immediately after 9/11, would you say?
So I started working on, you know, getting back in it, you know, right after it. And so I was back on the part-time side of the fence, you know, right after it. And I was back full-time active duty in early 2004.
And what was your job while in active duty?
So originally I went back in on the engineer side of the fence, and I was considering going special forces and become a Green Beret, right? And I ran into a couple of Army EOD techs, explosive ordnance disposal. And I worked with Navy EOD, and it never occurred to me that all the branches have explosive ordnance disposal. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, the IEDs, the improvised explosive devices, are what are killing and maiming our guys. And nothing would make me happier than to make the enemy unsuccessful at that. And so I volunteered for EOD and went that direction. And I spent over 12 years doing that on the Army side of the fence.
Now, were you stationed over in Afghanistan, Iraq, or?
I've done both.
Okay. How many times?
So I got extended in Iraq. So I was there before the surge. And so, you know, here I'll throw out something at you, you know, for like stories that people back home wouldn't hear. So when we first got there, our company was responding to 14 to 16 IED incidents every single day. Wow. In our area of operations. And within a couple months before we got extended out there, but within a couple months before coming home, we'd go over 24 hours without getting a call. And when we did, it'd be to pick something up that the locals were bringing in, because they you know, and that's an amazing turnaround. And that stuff no one back home got to hear about. You know, there was other stuff that no one back home got to hear about as well. And this was in Iraq. Okay. So one of the other things.
Iraq first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was in Iraq in all of 2007. And, you know, basically, like right after Christmas of 2006, boom, I'm there. And I was there through the first quarter of 2008.
Oh, wow.
Okay. You know, so.
And your job, so you would get a call from patrol, and it'd be like, there's, you know, explosive here. We need you to detonate it or take care of it. And that was it was sort of like a Hurt Locker type situation. Yeah, I do. I trigger something.
Yeah. Yeah. So every, you know, military job that's ever been done that, you know, that Hollywood wants to make extra cool, you know, or whatever. They take liberties. You know, there's aspects of it that are realistic, but then they turn around and went way left field and all that.
They have to, you know, that's just their nature.
You know, the idea, you know, somebody going rogue and with a 9mm, you know, dressing in black and going over the fence and going out, going, over the wire, as we call it, or outside the wire. It just,
But I mean, at the same time, I mean, you were getting the calls to, take care of these, what are they called? EODs?
IEDs.
IEDs. Yeah, right. These IEDs. So, like what does an IED look like? What were you seeing out there? What were they planting?
So that's the thing, is an IED can look like anything. It literally stands for improvised explosive device. And the only thing that, you know, it can have different types of triggers. And the only thing that The only limitation is the technical skill and imagination and materials of the builder.
So, I mean, it was just, for the patrols out there, I mean, they were just getting hit by anything anyone could think of.
Well, so originally in the early parts, the easiest way for them, to set up IEDs was to take ready-made military munitions and pack the fuse wells, and then basically daisy chain them with deck cord. So you got multiple rounds. Basically you got a bunch of 152 millimeter rounds. Like in the one deal in a hurt locker where he turns around, he pulls up some deck cord. Next thing you know, he pulls up a whole bunch of rounds. That right there can let you know that it's a bunch of BS. But the daisy chaining of the rounds, that aspect, very real.
Was there ever a moment where you were just like, holy crap,
Well, so my biggest holy crap moment, I had more than one, but okay, my biggest holy crap moment was when I disarmed and took apart my first EFP. EFP stands for explosively formed penetrators, and these were being set off by PIR, passive infrared. And so when the trucks would would go by them, they basically got like this copper plate that's concave with explosives behind them in a cylinder. And when it's set off, it turns that copper plate into a molten hot copper jet that will just rip through armor and set everyone on fire inside the vehicles. Well, my first one that I took apart, I discovered that it was from Iran.
Really?
Yeah. So it was that aha moment where I knew, I beyond a shadow, I had my suspicions. I knew that Iran, I wasn't ignorant. I knew that Iran funded Hamas, Hezbollah, and all that kind of stuff, and they were known to be the world's greatest state sponsor of terror. But now I had direct evidence that they were interfering in our conflict.
Yeah, I assume you pass that up the chain.
Well, everybody knows about it. The evidence ends up going, going up. So, I mean, so here's the whole thing. We don't just go blow up an IED. If you want to just go blow up an IED, you just send the engineers to go out and do that. If it's more important to get the units through, you can just go blow it up. But if you actually want to go after the enemy, you have to call on the battlefield detectives. We're trained in battlefield forensics. We treat it like everything like a crime scene. If it's blown up, we treat it like a crime scene. And, and we're gathering evidence. The evidence will identify, has a potential of being able to identify various members that were involved in it, whether it's the person that put it there, the person who built it, a trigger man, and so on and so forth, all a part of the terrorist cell, as we call it.
I mean, you're essentially tracking which Ace Hardware they bought this from and where they got this part from. And
well, yeah, I mean,
you're locating them based off of purchasing and or not just purchasing, but like instruments being used.
Well, so the way to look at it, you get so one of the things that I did while I was there was I got an opportunity to work at the Combined Explosives Exploitation Cell. Okay. CX or CEXC. So we call that sexy.
Naturally, of course.
That's right. That's right. You know it, ladies. I'm a sexy guy. Okay,
Calm down.
That's right. Calm down, ladies. But so that basically is a location where all the evidence goes, and it starts off in what we call triage, where we basically, you know, bring it into the system. We're X-raying to make sure everything's safe, so on and so forth, and then we log it into the system and then start sending it up to the different labs, and we basically we exploit all of the evidence that we can pull off of it. And you'd be amazed at what kind of evidence that we can pull off of it. And that's how we can, you know, I worked there. I got to work there for about, you know, about 5 weeks. And the work that I did there was, it was still working. In other words, all of the efforts that I put in it, and I worked extra hours there, you know, because I had already spent a year disarming bombs in that country. And the way I looked at it, so part of what I discovered while I was there was we didn't, you know, at that time, like our biometrics lab, we were only looking for fingerprints. Well, I know what it's like to turn around, peel back, you know, layer of tape, and then try and, you know, process them in a cyanoacrylate chamber to develop any prints and discover that there's none, but find a hair in between two pieces of tape, which that's the builder. So I asked the important question. So what do we do with DNA evidence? And, you know, and they asked me, what do you got? And I explained it to them. And they said, well, that all goes back to TDAC in Virginia, you know. And I said, well, how long does it take to process there? And they said, well, that could take another 6 months. Another 6 months? I said, you got to be kidding me. You mean that we have no lab in theater that can process DNA? You know, well, the PMO office has got it, but they won't take our stuff. I was like, what? So I turn around and go over to the office of FBI Special Agent Mike Call, and I said, hey, Mike, this is what I've got, and this is what I'm hearing. You know, I don't think that's right. He says, I don't think it's right neither. What all do you got? And I told him, and I said, we got all kinds of stuff, and he said, you know, get with the evidence custodian, fill out all the paperwork for chain of custody, and I will go with you over there to turn it in. We went over there, and this little sergeant, you know, proceeded to tell him that, you know, that they don't do other units DNA, and he said, what? He said, are we not on the same team? And she said, well, she was like, well, do you have any suspects? And he was like, if I had to have a suspect for every amount of evidence that I had to process, I would have never solved a single case. He says,
this has got to be new to you, right? I mean, this got to be shocking.
Well, it was shocking that we couldn't do that in theater in that day and age. Now, the thing is, I get it. You know, DNA had not came very far at that point in time, and it's still developing, all that. Okay, but the thing is, I changed how we were doing business, and they started taking our stuff, and we started finally processing DNA in 2008. Fast forward 2012, Afghanistan. Guess what was also in the biometric lab at Sexy in Afghanistan?
Oh, DNA machine, huh?
DNA. They had the ability to process DNA in theater.
How are they getting DNA samples to link up with foreign military insurgents? I mean, how did they have a database with all their DNA?
Great question. So you got to build a database, don't you?
Okay.
So you got to build a database.
You were baseline.
We're hemming up a bunch of people. We're turning around and we start pulling DNA and fingerprints in every village out there. And guess what? Now we got everybody. And if your stuff pops up on anything, we've got you. Well, at least in Iraq, when we were able to convince the courts, the judges, that's like, look, your fingerprints, we started with that. Your fingerprints, there is no one else on this planet that has those. Those are yours.
You're crazy.
And you basically wrap their head around it that you say Allah makes each of us very unique and special. Each one of us is different, right? You turn it around, you throw it in a way that they can wrap their head around it, that that we are all uniquely made, and next thing you know, they're executing people. Yep, yours was absolutely on it, and they're hanging people for it. They're executing people for it. Great thing about a rope is you can use it over and over and over again.
Yes. Do you think we should bring back public hangings to the United States? Honest question here.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm not into public executions. I don't think that's not
really.
Yeah.
You don't think that would tamper down? I mean, if it was fair.
Yeah,
you think that would tamper down on crime, or you think I have no?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just we're neither experts on this. Let's just
my thoughts on it is based off of stuff from the past. We do have old Wild West photos and stuff like that. Kids saw this,
right? Is that wrong though?
For kids to see it?
Well, I mean, the parents brought them to it in their defense.
The parents could have very, very well just been walking downtown, and all of a sudden,
I guess that's true. Maybe put it in a cul-de-sac. I get what you're saying.
There you go.
Well, I mean, but did those kids go to commit crimes after seeing that? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
I doubt it.
I don't have the studies.
Okay. All right, that's fair. I'm sorry. It's just sometimes we had this conversation earlier this week, and I think there's arguments both ways, but because they were. I mean, I watched the execution of Saddam Hussein. I think it was 15, maybe 14, 15, something like that. And so it's just sort of an interesting thing to see your country televised to you.
Yeah. Well, and there was that, and let's see, and so his country executed him, and then if you go over to Libya, Gaddafi was killed by his people too.
Yeah, that was very public as well.
Very
public. Yeah. So sorry about getting side. You go to Afghanistan, and your operations are running a lot more smoothly and efficiently. Was there when was the time that you decided, all right, it's time for me to come back home for good?
I think the second IED attack that I survived was probably good enough.
Well, no, we don't get to skip over the first one now. So tell me what you got hit by 2 IEDs. What was the time span between both of them?
Well, the first one, it was in 2007. I was in the back of the back of the truck. I was a member of the team, getting some stuff prepped as we were coming up on an IED site, and it was at night, and they were basically marking where they thought it was with a green dazzler, and we ended up going up over pressure plates, and I got launched into the ceiling of the JERV, as we called it, the Joint EOD Rapid Response Vehicle.
Holy crap! All right. Well, just concussion or shrapnel?
Having a headache after getting launched into the ceiling. That headaches. You don't turn around and make noise about that. But my neck was a little sore. But when I came back, I had an MRI done, and I had 2 herniated discs in my neck.
Oh
And so I was like, well, what's the prognosis? And they were like, well, it's going to get worse. And I said, well, I'm not crawling. You ain't cutting.
Yes.
You know?
So you were protected from the shrapnel then from it.
Yeah. I was inside the armored vehicle, you know, nothing penetrated the hole at that point.
Oh, man. And then the second time, so if you get rattled the first time, but you know, you man's man, you brush it off. But
well, we look at it like this, you know, we're out there disarming bombs.
Yeah.
If we're not out there doing that, you know, people are dying.
Yeah. Well, and would like a normal Humvee have been protected from a blast like that?
No, a normal Humvee, there would have been people dead.
Yeah. That's you know, it's sort of scary watching this Russia-Ukraine war, and these IEDs are now drones. You know,
I saw that coming.
Yeah, it's the number one. It's the number one weapon of choice now, it seems like. But you know, what surprised me, I guess, why I brought that up was, and I never think of this, is the concussion injury aspect of it. You know, I always forget that the concussion is just as bad, if not worse, than some of the shrapnel.
Well, they call it mild TBI, you know, traumatic brain injury, but that's the fancy term for it. But yeah, it's a concussion.
What happened the second time?
The second time was a much bigger IED, and it blew the blast shield, the armored blast shield off of our jerv, launched both of our big gas tanks, you know, 30 feet either direction, totally disabled the vehicle, and dented, you know, it dented the floor right up from underneath where I was sitting, you know, a good inch in. So, I mean, you know, it was very close to penetrating that time, but we got it that time. The shock jacked up my foot, and the shock, you know, through my lower back. So came back, you know, I wasn't worried about my foot. I wore a brace for a little bit, but when I came back and got another MRI done of my lower back, you know, there's another herniated disc. Well, again, you know, I'm not crawling, you're not cutting. And I just kept doing a lot of pain management and, you know, everything under the sun. You know, I mean, I was even willing to do acupuncture. You know, I did radio frequency obliteration, you know, a couple times and all that kind of stuff, you know, just whatever was available to, you know, continue to be able to serve. Because I've watched too many other soldiers let them actually take care of them, you know, go, you know, surgically, and then they would be medically retired. You know,
It's not worth the risk, especially when it comes to your back. You know, you get one shot at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, but that's the whole thing. Is like I said, I've watched too many soldiers that they would go in for help, and next thing you know, their military careers cut short of 20 years. And if it's cut short of 20 years, they lose their pension.
And what year is this going on?
So I you know, got enough guidance from a lot of senior dudes, and I've watched enough, you know, people go through processes that we figured out that basically the sweet spot where you can actually get yourself surgically you can stop foregoing surgery is about 17 and a half years in, you know, because all of the care that it takes and the rehabilitation afterwards and physical therapy and all that stuff, you're going to reach 20.
Yeah. And I think that's sad that our soldiers have to figure that stuff out.
Yeah. Well,
that's silly.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing is, you know, nobody works to become disabled.
No.
You work towards a pension if you're in one of the career fields that offers that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you know, this is a risk that, I mean, granted, you volunteered for it, but at the same time, it's in service to the country, to the government. to your people, and it should be taken care of when the inevitable bad thing happens.
Right.
Serving in the military. That's yeah, it's baseball players get that, for Christ's sake. Yeah, I think we could do that for our military. And I'm
Well,
sure we could go on and on about examples of people being screwed over by the VA.
right, right.
And had to deal with that whole song and dance. And that's not all VA. There's a
Yeah.
lot.
The
Good,
VA's gotten better. I mean,
yeah.
they've gotten better. I mean, there's been a lot of efforts made to improve things, and it's like, okay, so I've got another spinal surgery coming up, and they're sending me out through what's called community care, which means I'm getting taken care of outside of the VA, but the VA's paying for it. And so this is something that 10 years ago would not have existed.
Yeah, and the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, well, and you get a little bit, I mean, as soon as I found out that they were going to send me out through community care, my wife started doing research and getting reviews of some of the top ones. So when they gave us a list of possibilities, you say, well, we want that one there then.
Yeah, that's how it should be. That's
Yes.
good. I'm glad to hear that, man. Brian, few questions to wrap up. I know I kept you we're going a little bit over an hour.
It's all good.
I hope you don't mind. But when you leave the military and you go back to civilian life, would you say the transition was difficult for you, or I mean, do you was it difficult for you?
Well, so interestingly enough, being a kid from the Midwest, and a bomb tech, there's not a whole lot of bombs to disable back in the Midwest, which is a good problem to have. But they pay stupid money for that, my kind of knowledge and skills overseas. And I got, highly recommended to do overseas contract work in Abu Dhabi. And I'm like, well, that's a whole different kind of desert that I'm used to working in. And so I went over and I did that. I did that for a couple years.
Really? Oh, how cool.
They wanted to renew the contract, and my wife's like, I need you home. So, and now transitioning back here to your point, yeah, there's a little bit of difficulty dealing with, what I would call overly sensitive people.
No, you don't like the snowflakes,
right? Well, so without labeling people or anything like that, you're like, really, I heard a feeling. Good Lord, yeah, it's that was an eye opener for me. Is to how to navigate dealing with overly sensitive people.
What I mean, I'll just give you an example of a good friend of mine. I call him Billiam, and he was my neighbor for a year in South Dakota, and he was from Baltimore, Maryland, and he went over to Iraq, and he cleared houses. That was his job.
Mm-hmm.
And and very skilled at his job, and I never ask, or pry, because it's not my place. I just, I appreciate what that sacrifice entails. But he moved to a small town in the Midwest, and you know how small towns are. It takes a while for him to warm up to you. I just remember thinking, like, my heart went out for him because, he was struggling with he was struggling with what he did. And at the same time, he obtained this great skill set that protected him and saved him through that time. And then, how hard it is to transition to people who are disrespectful or, just talk down to you, and just have to, you just put up with it. And the type of self-constraint that takes, I think really the ultimate sacrifice, because you've been trained you've been trained to handle the worst of situations. And you've seen, I don't know about you personally, but in some ways you've seen the consequences of war. That's just it.
Yeah.
People die or people get hurt. You
Yep.
know, you still, it's a football mentality, next man in. And I would assume though, like when some people they handle the transition well, and there's other aspects that are more difficult than others. I would think like for you, after all you've been through, and to have people whine about shoes, or I don't know what ticks what grinds your gears, Brian, but uh I think that what did you find helps you maintain a positive attitude even working through that?
Well, yeah, great question. And part of it is just keeping in mind that, you know, you know, I keep it in perspective. Anybody that's that's trying to trigger me and all that, I find peace in the fact that they're insignificant. I heard whatever I got to turn around and tell myself is like, they don't they don't matter that much to me unless I let them matter, and to allow somebody to trigger me, give somebody power over you, you know.
Well, it's a victim's mentality to be triggered, honestly, when it comes down to it. I mean, you can be upset. There can be righteous indignation. You can
Right.
defend your position if you disagree with it, but to have it elicit an emotional response is a weakness. And I think did did you see a transition in the military to that weakness, you'd say?
uh well, I mean, the thing is some people are just more resilient than others. And now, what I will say is that the Army went out of their way to build a resiliency program to improve soldiers and giving them the ability to snap back from traumatic experiences, and I think that was pretty beneficial.
I mean, do you think that when it comes to like, for example, I think yesterday it was announced that Trump's sending 2 nuclear submarines to an unspecified location in Russia. And
Here,
I didn't know you were a submariner.
okay, yeah. So here, let me give you a hint. All of our submarines are nuclear. Whoop-de-doo.
What do you think is it's going to accomplish though? Because you were you were a submariner. I didn't know
I've
that.
seen I've seen coastline I can't talk about, my friend. It's called Paraviz. The periscope, we can literally see video off of the periscope through TVs that are like down there in the mess decks.
Yeah, that's
Pretty freaking cool.
yes, it is.
And that was way back in the day. And I'm sure it's only gotten better.
Yeah, in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. I had the privilege of living in Colorado Springs with the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, yeah. Fort
And
Carson, well,
yes, yeah, did some work out there as an electrician. But I got to sit next to a bunch of ex or retired Air Force pilots that were all eating at a restaurant, and they were having a reunion, and we just had a table sitting right next to them. And I mean, first of all these guys just beefed out, and all fearless, and I think when it comes to your approach to life and to our military, that's really the beautiful thing about what you represent and represented, Brian, and how you've passed it down to your family.
I appreciate
And no, I mean, in 30 years married, what do you think? to military men who have wives, what is the key to success for keeping that bond through all those deployments and voluntary missions?
The thing is not every spouse is designed with the ability to be apart and be okay with it. But it takes a lot of support. Staying connected even when you're apart. That kind of deal. Staying in touch. Staying focused on the why. Because I wasn't the only one that served. My family had to serve right along with me, in a different capacity, but they had to sacrifice just as well, and never did I forget that. You can't allow yourself to take that for granted. Hey, Corey, and just to let you know, I'm about to lose battery on my phone and all.
No. I appreciate
probably thinking just plug it in, fool.
No. I promised you an hour and we've already gone over it. And I won't keep you any longer, Brian, but I really appreciate your time. I know days off are rare and you enjoy them with your family. So I appreciate the hour you gave us on the show.
Hey, it was an honor, Corey. I appreciate you as well, sir.
All right. That was Brian Hayes, everybody. And we're very grateful for his time. And for all our veterans, it's fascinating to talk to all these different scope of people that served in different capacities, and they all have different viewpoints on the world, and it's because of all their different experiences. The problem here is we, I see a lot of people just be dismissive of it or look down on it. And there's so much value to gain from accepting another person. You don't have to agree with everything, but to allow that conversation to happen is the most important thing we can do. That's why podcasts are the best. That's why Fantom Facts is, we've got tens of followers here. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining Fantom Facts, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks again to Brian Hayes and to his family. And until next week, enjoy your weekend, everybody.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. This is our following station is exposed. Remove from the road.